Dirty, Constance. You're not eating, said Andrew, pointing out the obvious. He had a way of doing that. You forgot your hat. The sky is very blue today. It was very sweet, but also very dull. I appreciate his concern for me, I suppose, but it was funny. My lack of hunger at the high tea was not at the top of my list of concerns. How do you know about monsters? I asked it, picking up a sandwich from the 3-thread serving dish between us and placing it on my little plate with the painted flowers curling around its edges. Andrew laughed a little. Monsters, as in storybook monsters, ogres, trolls, that sort of creature? I shook my head. That wasn't what I meant, but I also didn't know what I meant. No, I meant in real life. Metaphorical monsters, then? Like murderers, like Nancy's during the war? He took a sip of the tea and looked at me, amused, over the edge of the cup. No, not like that either. I was getting frustrated. There was no reason to be annoyed with him. He didn't understand. He will never understand. Just like Bill didn't understand. Just like no one will ever understand. Hey now, you're looking so serious. Are you okay? Asked Andrew, putting down the teacup, reaching across the table for my hand. I gave it to him to hold. No gloves? He asked it. My stomach clenched. Is that a problem? No, I like being able to hold your hand. You're always put together through. It was a nice change. He smiled at me. My gloves caved in anger, sitting at my home, on my desk. I didn't know what to do with them. I couldn't figure out what properties the ink had so seemed too useless to keep. I feared throwing them away. What if they were found? What if the ink contained it? Other things. Do you think monsters could exist? Dinosaurs existed? They are like monsters in some way. Is it possible that strange shadowy monsters, like the ones they said to live in your closet? Is it possible that such monsters do in fact exist? Andrew stared at me. He was uncomfortable. All I wanted to do was tell him everything, was to talk to him, was to be heard. This man was my bow, was the love of my life, according to Lily. I should be able to tell him these things. I want to open my mouth and vomit out words. Everything I ever wanted to say, but didn't. I wanted to say no to the horse diving, no to plain dressing up, no to the idea of dating. Just no. I just wanted to say no to everything, and everyone heard my voice ring out like bells. No, said Andrew. Oh, I replied it. I looked at my wide linen tablecloth, at the tiny empty jam jars we used up, the crumbs of the scones, the little delicate mess around us. I felt the urge to undid the table, just stood up and flipped it over, to create the real mess, real chaos, to see the looks on the faces of the other people sitting so politely around us, talking in soft tunes, being dissipated. What was the point of being creative, when life was so meaningless? When one light could change the course of your life, could destroy a living, breathing person. A small black beetle climbed out casually on the tablecloth and wandered across my line of vision. Constance, said Andrew, gently rubbing the palm of my hand when this done. I have something that I would like to ask you. Do you see that? I asked it. I tried to pull my hand out, but he held fast, just like Brant, tight, so tight. I pulled harder. He didn't let go of me. Red-hot rage started racing in my throat. Let go of me! I stood in fury. Andrew rocked back slightly on his chair. I grabbed one of the empty jam jars, picked up the beetle up on one of his legs, and pressing it inside with the raining flakes of raspberry. Constance, what's wrong with you? Andrew asked it, startled. I had to leave. I pushed my chair back and made my way toward the exit, easing myself between the tables, apologizing for getting in the way of the other guests. I knew they were all staring at me. They all thought I was crazy. I stepped out into the air, almost right into the couple for the stroll. I'm so sorry, I said as they looked at me annoyed. Constance! Andrew grabbed me by the shoulder and I shook them off as I turned to him. Don't, I said. What's wrong? You aren't yourself. Has something happened? He looked so concerned. He wasn't upset at all with me. He thought that I was losing my mind. How could I tell him that I never felt more like me in my life? Nothing has happened. I slipped the jar with the beetle in it into my pocket. I wanted to ask you to be my girl, he said. I nodded. I knew he wanted to ask me something big. I had fear of a proposal and felt a little relieved that he hadn't been planning one. After all, it had been only a couple weeks' courtship. The idea Drew had been dating others, that I wasn't already fully committed to him, shocked me. Did this mean he hadn't been fully committed to me the whole time? Have you been out on the town with the other girls? I asked it. I said it lightly with a smile. I still remembered the old techniques. I'm a man about town, he said with a laugh. It only reinforced me how special you are. I took both my hands in his now. I couldn't be held by hands. It was too visual. I pulled them away. Don't be upset, he said. It sounded like he was talking to a pounding puppy. I wasn't upset with him. I was upset with myself. All this time I assumed Andrew and I were a foregone conclusion. All this time I assumed that this was it. I had settled for him. Decided the pleasantness of our interactions was good enough for me for the rest of my life. I hadn't even considered that I could still go window shopping. Why hadn't I considered that? I don't think I want to be exclusive with you, I said slowly, not being able to look him in the eyes. I needed to consider myself first. Swear I love you, Constance. I want to marry you someday. I promise any time spent with the other girls was meaningless to me. He fidgeted awkwardly on the spot, not being able to hold me. How lovely for those girls, I said, almost more to me myself. Why are you being so cruel? He asked it. I shook my head. I'm not worried about what you did. I'm worried about what I didn't do. I don't understand. He blinked at me. I don't expect you to. I finally looked up at him. Let's just leave things as they are for now. In fact, let's just leave it. Be done with all of it. He didn't seem happy with the suggestion, but he nodded. If that's what you want, it is. It was what I wanted it. It was actually exactly what I wanted it. The feeling of knowing what I wanted it and getting what I wanted was overpowering. What else did I want? I want to go home now, I said. Of course, he replied it. And so I did.